Okay, I want to welcome Dr. Channette. She is actually coming from Australia.
Channette.
Channette, sorry, Channette. She's actually coming from Australia. She grew up in Switzerland in Zurich and had a wonderful grandmother that taught her about wellness. She did ice baths and muesli and all the daily exercise and crisp mountain air. And she has a marrying a husband who is Australian. She moved to Australia and she actually was a full homeopath. So you can tell us a little bit about your education and also a vet. So she primarily now sees animals and she does Zoom meetings and consults with people in the English speaking world and Zurich around the world. So I wanted to thank you so much for taking your time and meeting with us. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you became a homeopathic and a vet?
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. So I'm Dr. Channette, and I am working in Sydney on the ground. And my past is that I was always wanting to be a veterinarian. And so I went to vet school as my first thing. And through vet school, though, I did become aware that maybe the way we were being taught about medicine and wellness, there's something not quite right about it. Well, something that wasn't deep enough for me, as in, why are we getting unwell? Why are animals unwell? It was always not a question that was answered, and that was my main sort of question. So then, after I graduated, I was introduced to homeopathy as I took a remedy myself. I was allergic to chlorine, which was a hospital disinfectant, and I happened to go to a naturopath, and he gave me this little bottle of pills and said, "Take this." And after years of having problems with it, it went away overnight. And I was like, "Whoa, what is this?" So I then, as a layperson, studied homeopathy for many years, so like even 6 years, and became quite good as a lay homeopath. And then one day I just thought, why don't I study this? And I did. And I have then introduced it. I then became actually a human homeopath because I was so interested in it. I had young kids and, I just got into that world. But then I did come back to veterinary science and recently have done specialized training in veterinary homeopathy and have been doing, veterinary homeopathy, quite intensely for 6 years now, at least. Longer, since I have been treating animals whilst being a human homeopath, but have become more effective due to veterinary training. Yeah, and now I'm sort of very dedicated to being a veterinary homeopath. I am also an emergency vet
Wow.
on the weekends to earn some money, more money, as life is expensive. But homeopathy is absolutely my passion, and yeah, that's how I want to treat all animals really. Yeah, so that's a bit of my background.
Oh, wonderful. Are you allowed to use homeopathy in the emergency vet care, or is that not usually allowed in that
Yeah, look,
area?
yeah. So when you're an emergency vet, I'm employed by veterinary hospitals, that are, but, if I've been working for someone, for a particular veterinary hospital, and it's a bit smaller, and I speak to the owner and ask permission from my client, the patients that I happen to see, I will mention homeopathy and just see if they've heard the word before. And if they have, sometimes I'll have a homeopath as a client, or a
Wow.
naturopath. If I get the feeling that someone is more into natural therapies, I might just say the word and just see if they take it on. And yeah, and some people, use it on their themselves, and then they'll say, "Yeah, please tell me a remedy," and then I might mention a remedy. Yeah, so that's sort of how it works. Yeah, I mean, homeopathy is fantastic for emergencies. Obviously, not all, some emergencies require surgery. Like you do,
Right.
if you're in trouble with an animal, you need to go to a vet or an emergency vet. But yeah, it is very good first line treatment. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, one of the things that I loved when we talked is that you said nutrition is so important. And I talk about that with for people and for animals as well. So tell me a little bit about that from your perspective.
Yeah, again, so when I went to university, the science diet of the world back then funded our university, and you know, another like PAL food, dog food. Yeah,
Okay.
anyway, commercial dog food funded our university, and we were taught from day one that you must feed kibble diet, the biscuits, the dried biscuits, and that's balanced and it has all the nutrients, and you can't feed human food. And I grew up actually with Great Danes, so my parents bred Great Danes, and we had chickens and horses and cats and fish and everything. And, all animals were fed natural food, meat, like pure meat and other things, and for the dogs. And I was always curious, our dogs, like our Great Danes, lived to 14. And anyway, so one day, and for my own health, I sort of was very health conscious from day one. And one day I sort of put it together like, this just doesn't feel right. It took me a while because I think you are quite indoctrinated at university. You sort of think professors are, they are God. Yes, and I had it, and at that time at veterinary school, I had Italian greyhounds, which are very sensitive little doggies, and I started feeding them, back to fresh food, and I did a lot more study, and yeah, sort of think 50% of health at least, if not more, is feeding good food. And I'm a believer in fresh food, freshly cooked food, um, fresh meats, veggies, raw meaty bones. You have to get the calcium. So it's very important. I guess the one thing is that the kibble is great if you work all day, you have zero time, you have little money, perhaps. It does provide all the nutrients. It's a bit like, Kellogg cornflakes with added vitamins and minerals. It will
Right.
keep you alive, but it won't make you thrive.
Right,
So yeah,
exactly.
yeah, same thing with dogs and their teeth as well. Like again, being a normal vet, I see, dogs' teeth. I've been a vet for over 20 years, unfortunately. With my age, yes. So I've noticed the health of animals deteriorating a lot, especially their teeth. And I think people, yeah, it's just a sign of diet. So raw meaty bones, you want the bones, you want the meat and the tendons, raw meat, offal, veggies, some fruits, omega-3 fatty acids, super important. Some supplements, some eggs, maybe even digestive enzymes. That's about the only supplement that I would use, if you have weak digestion. And again, it's very particular. Older dogs, that have weak digestion, or older cats that have weak digestion, you might want to cook the food lightly. Not all dogs can eat bones, like the Frenchies, they can't, they might choke. So it's very, obviously it's just sort of a broad band, but fresh food is the way to go. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. So, speaking on dogs, do you have any stories that you can tell us about how you were able to use homeopathy to help any particular dogs?
Yes. Well, I've helped, so many dogs. I'll have to pull one out of my memory. I guess one of the recent dogs that I've had, he's like a 14-year-old Leon Burger. He's my recent case. I've had him for about 2 years, and he's got problems with arthritis, and he's like, being an old dog, he has trouble like swallowing. He has weak muscles in the throat. So when animals get older, they call it like collapsing trachea, or
Yes.
laryngeal paralysis. And in modern medicine, we don't really have anything to treat that sort of thing. They might be able to put a stent in, if they're super duper fancy vets, but we can't really make the muscles work better. We don't have, muscle tonifiers or anything.
Right.
And yeah, for this particular dog, I used causticum, which is a very good remedy for this sort of muscle paralysis. And he did have some urine leakage as well, so his bladder muscle wasn't very strong.
Right.
And if you look up causticum, it is very much for that sort of thing. So that works really, really well. Again, sort of a higher level homeopathic case. I have used many first aid remedies, on animals. Like just the other day, my daughter's dog had quite a bad cut on his foot. He stepped on glass, and I used Hypericum, quite a high dose
Right.
Hypericum, and it just relieved the pain straight away and healed. It took like 48 hours to heal, where the skin was obviously not fully, but the skin was already closing. Phenomenal speed. Yeah, so those are like acute and chronic cases as an example.
That's wonderful. Wow, the Costicum to cover both is great for I love Costicum for urinary issues. That one's
Yeah,
wonderful.
yeah.
One thing I wanted to ask is you do have some experience with horses, and I have a lot of horses in my neighborhood and friends that have horses. Um, what are some ways that you've treated horses, and how do you, people always ask, how do you dose an animal that size?
Yeah, so horses are actually fantastic to treat. They're actually highly responsive. And as far as dosing goes, it's quite easy. You just, again, the little pills, you just place them on the gums. Just because they're big doesn't mean that, you don't necessarily have to use a bucket of pills. It's just a few pills onto the gums. I can treat a chihuahua with 3 pills, and I can treat a horse with 3 pills. It's an energetic medicine. It's not a material medicine. So it's treating the energetic field of the animal or the person. And so it's really just that medicine landing on the gums, infusing the body as soon as they get wet, and it has to land on the mucous membrane. So you just sort of hold the lip open. The other thing you can do is mix it with a little bit of water and then just sort of squirt it like you could squirt any medicine with a syringe into the side of the horse's mouth, is fine. So you just take like a mill of water, put a few pills in, mix it around and squirt it in. Some people, if they really are not that, good with medicating horses, they'll even say you can put the dropper onto like a rice cracker and feed the rice
Okay.
cracker. But I like it when it lands on the gums. I'm not happy, giving it with food. So I think it's easy enough to squirt it in. Yeah.
And
And
you would
as
do
far
that with
as you,
almost any animal. You would do that with almost any size of animal then,
with what?
with
Oh,
almost any
yes,
size.
yes, yes, yes. Yes, so even dogs, cats, for example, they don't like pills. Even though in homeopathy they're quite small pills. But yeah, you can just drip it into the side of a cat's or dog's mouth as well. Yeah, or I can just like, with dogs, cats, it's a bit hard to make it land on the gum, so I just put it in the mouth and it's fine. Yeah, give it away
Okay.
from food. But with horses, I mean, the first aid kits are fantastic. Like the arnica for bruising. Um, I've used like hemamillus if you've got a hematoma, like a big, when they have these big swellings full of blood, if you want to drain those. Um, Bleeders, when they're bleeding, phosphorus is really good. Again, horses often have like have injuries, like calendula for wound healing is really good. But you can apply, constitutional remedies to horses as well. My most recent horse case is a 9-year-old mare that comes into season like every 2 weeks for two
Oh,
weeks,
wow.
So she's got like 2 weeks a break, 2 weeks a break. It's quite outrageous. And, for the owner to have this mare, and she she was sold to a riding school, where she went from one owner to a riding school. She was a lovely pony, but then all these kids came along. She became one of those really cranky riding school horses, and was
Okay.
then bought by another person. And this person has been working with her for a few years, and she's working with me now, and said, she's so lovely one-on-one. And if you look at Nat Mur, you look at that remedy as a constitutional remedy. She also loves salt, is very much for people that are, they love the one-on-one relationship. They don't do well with, being pulled away from the one-on-one. They suffer grief. When she was pulled away from the riding school, even though she didn't like it there, she was very, very upset. So Yeah,
Oh,
and as far as and she comes into heat, and it's Natmur is very much a a hormonal remedy as well. Yeah, so she's done really well on Natmur. Yeah, and that's a very constitutional thing. So yeah, so you're getting to the root cause. There's a root disturbance, and on a hormonal level. Yeah,
wow,
that's not
wonderful.
going to be fixed overnight. That will take time.
Right.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
how much time would you, when somebody's working with you, how long would you expect for their animal to go to use homeopathy before they see results? Do you usually give them like, okay, we're going to work for several months. It's not going to happen tomorrow, usually, or
Yeah, look,
how do you?
yeah, it depends on the case. Again, the more acute, like disease can be superficial or deep. Yeah, we all
Mhm.
have deep chronic disease, but some disease is more superficial and you can treat it quite quickly. It might be, one of those stories where I do a consultation and my assessment is that even though it is constitutional disease, the animal is quite vibrant, has quite a strong vital force, and the disease is not that deep. We can have one of those miracle cures where you give the one remedy and they do really well, and it's like, whoa, and they haven't looked back, and that's it. They might need another dose in a year or something like that, or when life changes. But other animals, they might have quite superficial looking disease. For example, dogs with ear infections, they tend to be actually quite diseased animals. For example, golden retrievers or even cavoodles, they're quite unwell animals. They look quite well on the outside, but they're actually quite deeply diseased. Yeah. So you will start with them and it will feel like, oh, it's just an ear infection, but that's like the tip of the iceberg. Yeah. And so you open up one layer and you fix one layer and then another layer might come along. So I usually do one long initial consultation and then I often do a recheck in 3 to 4 weeks. I do hand holding in the first week, but then do a proper reassessment 3 to 4 weeks. And then it might be that we do another one in a month, and then we might, broaden it out to, half yearly or something like that. Most animals these days, unfortunately, are quite unwell. There's a lot of toxicities around. There's a lot of, bad breeding. I could go on and on about why animals, they're definitely more unwell. And most animals, most humans do need lifelong care from a homeopath. Yeah. It may be a yearly thing. It may be just like when you go to a vet,
Right.
conventionally, we should be going to a vet once a year just to make sure there's nothing happening. Same thing with homeopathy. As a matter of fact, if you're doing holistic care, you want to be quite proactive. You don't want to be, we don't want to wait for things to happen. We want to be ahead of the curve. Yeah.
Absolutely. I love that.
Mm.
Trying to get ahead so that we can keep them healthy or keep their whole underlying
Yeah.
health stronger. So, one thing I was going to ask is, I have a lot of people contact me about dogs and particularly skin issues, or what you were talking about with the reoccurring ear infections. Do you have any specific remedies that people could start out with either of those issues, or what are your thoughts?
Yes. So again, the skin, it is the outermost organ. And what happens, like if you look at holistic care, if you look at the whole paradigm of why disease happens, there's a disharmony in the body. So you're unwell for some reason. You're either genetically have some stuff with you, or you're exposed to toxins, or you're eating the wrong food, or you're in a stressful environment. It's like that vital force is disrupted and you are susceptible to disease. So um, with skin, it's often what the body is trying to do is there is this disharmony. And the first thing the body will do is try to exteriorize disease. So the skin is often just the place where the body just puts disease. You're not itchy necessarily because, I mean, if you have fleas and you get a flea bite or a mosquito bite, yes, you're itchy. But often those rashes, those chronic things that come up, those are actually the body trying to rid itself from disease. Okay. So one very important thing is what I don't like to see people doing is giving, medication like skin care, like a product like steroid or an antibiotic, because what you're doing is you're suppressing that symptom and you're making the disease go in. There's lots of studies where, kids, they have eczema or something like that. A steroid is applied, and then a year later they come with asthma. So it's quite a common thing. You can look it up online. There's many studies, all sorts of examples of where the disease goes deeper. So yeah, it's quite dangerous treating just skin. So my recommendation is to actually, look deeper. And if anything, try to use, either gentle shampooing, trying to get rid of the pollution, trying to keep the coat clean and healthy, good nutrition with the omega-3 fatty acids, calendula oil or calendula, mother tincture, it's called, is very good for hot spots and things like that. And I would stick to the acute remedies, like, for example, um, things like even apis, if you get hot, swollen, like bee sting type things,
Allergies.
apis is quite, yes, it's quite a, not superficial, it's a very powerful remedy, but it's not one of those deep constitutional remedies like sulfur, for example. A lot of people have heard of sulfur for skin, but the problem is sulfur is a very deep acting constitutional remedy, and you can actually cause aggravations with such a powerful remedy. And you really want to be a homeopath to control that. So, yeah, it's a bit of a tricky thing, because it is just a sign that there is stuff going on inside. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. And what about for ear infections? Do you have anything in particular that you recommend for
Yeah.
that issue?
Yeah. So ear infections, again, they are chronic disease, so it would be really good to treat that homeopathically. But there are lots of things that you can do. For example, I even do things like using diluted green tea or green tea. So,
Green
you
tea.
get
I haven't
proper,
heard of that
yeah,
one.
yeah. You get really good quality green tea, and you don't burn it. Like, you put 70-degree water, not not boiling water. It's like
Right.
70 degrees. You let it steep for a minute and a half or 2 minutes only. You let it cool down, and that's actually a very good, ear cleaner, or a solution that will calm things down. It has antioxidants in it, and yeah, it just seems to work really well. Um, Otherwise, things like calendula, hypericum, either topical creams or something like that, is much better than, a steroid and antibiotic. Yeah. There's also, you can use like mullein oil as well. Mullein. Yeah, that's very good. Yeah, so there's quite a few little concoctions, but that's a good one that I use. Yeah. You don't want to do too much, not too much, like you want to soak up the fluid as well. You want to clean it out as well, before you put the any creams in. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. I also had another question. You mentioned you do a little bit with wildlife as well, and they're not quite
Mm.
wild, but we have feral cats. So how do you treat if is it wildlife that, how do you do that? How do you manage it if you can't actually capture the animal very easily?
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess when I think wildlife in Australia, it's sort of like birds are really common, or even like I'll get lizards or snakes, or, in the emergency hospital, we're allowed to treat wildlife with whatever. So I can use homeopathy. It's like you can do whatever you want with the
Wow.
wildlife.
Okay.
So wild cats, so in Australia, yeah, they are feral as well. But, obviously people have own cats here, but we do have problems with feral cats. You probably have wild animals that are actually proper indigenous wild cats. Is that correct?
Well, I'm talking about personally, we have some feral cats, but we also do have mountain lions and bobcats. And they've
Oh,
seen
wow. Yeah.
bobcats in our neighborhood.
Yeah. So with that sort of situation, I mean, again, it's very difficult. With a bird, for example, you get the bird and you can, if it's quite unwell, you can have a look and, have a bit of a diagnosis, like what's the problem? Are they very weak? Are their muscles weak? Are they in shock? Remedies like aconite, arnica, fantastic for birds. Say it's flown into a window. Arnica, like 10M, it's quite a high potency for that, just to get rid of, for any bruising, if you can, obviously, if there's a broken neck, that's a problem, or a broken leg, but arnica for just basically the impact. Aconite for the shock, like if they're just, shocked, there's a slight difference. You can revive birds really well unless there's major damage. And now, so in the situation of cats, what I have done, and I guess I've had experience with aggressive dogs in my clinics, for example, I will have like a squirty bottle, like a proper, like Windex or something.
Oh,
You
yes.
you you get a clean one of those squirty bottles. You put the remedy in there, and you just squirt with into the mouth. Say they're barking at you, for example, aconite 10M, again, for that fear, intense fear. If I have squirted that into dogs and all of a sudden they're like, oh, okay, it's not quite so bad that because often they're aggressive because of that fear. So in the case of cats, what works very, very well for, say you have a cat that's stuck, feral and stuck somewhere and hissing and scratching, I use pulsatilla 10M.
Oh,
Again, really
okay.
high potency. Yes, so pulsatilla is for those very, very, very timid and fearful animals. Again, the pulsatilla is for they're just so timid because they're feral, they're not used to human beings, and so it's that timidity. If you look up,
Right.
what pulsatilla
Yes.
is made, it's for those very, very timid, very, very fearful, and very high potency of a pulsatilla. We get, for example, a lot of cats brought in, that are lost, or feral, that want to, potentially could be homed. Um, Pulsatilla 10M works really, really well. Yeah.
I would not
It
have
just
thought of
brings
that
them
for
out
the
of that.
cats. Okay, that's great.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes. The other one is Ignatia. If you do have like
Yes.
animals that are brought in, they're just grieving, they've either lost or whatever, and they're just really, really sad. Yeah, so Ignatia is another one. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time. I was going to ask, in closing, do you want to share with us anything else? And then, if somebody wants to contact you to do a consult for their pet, I will put the information with the video, so you can give me that information as well. And if you have any closing thoughts or a story that you want to share about how you've utilized homeopathy, and it sounds like incredible ways.
Yeah, look, I actually am I hate the word passion, but it's what I do, and it's what I breathe and think every moment of the day. It is such an extraordinary medicine. So Hahnemann, Dr. Hahnemann actually invented it. He founded it. He was a genius, and he basically came up with the concept 250 years ago or more. And when you really study what he wrote, he was, very, very scientific. He was a doctor, he was a scientist, he spoke many languages. He came across this, like he was educated. He was a doctor, but he was quite poor, and he translated medical texts. And through that, he just became aware of, medicines, herbal medicines, and things that were used. And he just put dots together. I won't go into the whole story, but it's quite a nice story. And I have been a homeopath for more than 20 years, and I have treated animals intensely for a long time. And I am an emergency veterinarian. So, I have the ability to assess how long something should take to heal. And so, I can make very educated assessments of what's going on. And every day I am amazed how quickly and how profoundly this medicine works. Like my own cat is quite unwell. He's a rescue. He's quite unwell. And, when he doesn't eat, I give him his medication when he's off his food, and he will within probably 2 minutes start eating. So it's unbelievable. Like it's energetic, it's not material, and
Right.
it's faster than modern medicine. If you get the right remedy for the right thing, like that's quite tricky. Um, so I want to spread the word. I want to be an educator. I want to, help people learn homeopathy so that they can, you know, be good conveyors of, be good guardians for their pets so that they can communicate with homeopaths. They can do a lot of things on their own,
Mhm.
with those first aid kits. And I highly recommend that they do that so they learn a little bit more about this science. So then they go, okay, and they become good observers. They know what's important. The more they know, the more they learn. And then they can communicate with the homeopath really well, because part of my problem is, when I get people that don't know that much about homeopathy, they don't know how to, tell me things, because a doctor is not interested why you have a headache, whereas a homeopath wants to know exactly why do you have a headache and what does it feel like, and yeah, so happy to, spend time. And I mentor, university students, naturopathic
Wow.
students as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So at Phoenix University, yeah, to spread the word. It's
Oh,
worth
that's
checking into.
Oh, absolutely. That's brilliantly said. Thank you so much for your time and
You're
wow,
welcome.
your
So it's
expertise.
yeah, it's info, it's theintegratedvet.com.au is my website. Yeah. So you can just have a look. It tells you more about me as well.
Okay, and they can book an appointment with you as well on there.
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. I'll put that in the notes. And thank you for your time. And I just am so impressed that you have so many years of experience as a homeopath and a vet. What a beautiful way to integrate those two together. And what would you say to someone in closing that was trying to look at if they should go the pharmaceutical route for their pet or homeopathy?
Yeah, so look, again, modern medicine or conventional medicine, there is a place.
Mhm.
And if you have, a very sick animal, I highly recommend that you go to a veterinarian, find out what's wrong, what's the problem. And then you can even then go back to holistic therapies, but you want to just be safe and work out what the problem is. And, conventional vets, they're very kind people. They want to do the right thing, but medicine has health and medicine hasn't progressed quickly enough to uh, you know, to really they don't focus on wellness. They focus on getting rid of symptoms. So that
Mhm.
we have a headache for a reason. We have a discharge from some, body part for a reason. And modern medicine is geared at stop the symptom and we're all good. If we can't see the symptom, we're all good. But that's
Right.
not the case. We're not all good. It just goes deeper and we just can't see it. Yeah. So if you use homeopathy, homeopathy is just an aid to help the body heal itself. So we're getting rid of disease from the inside. We are creating harmony from the disharmony and creating health. And that, just even you think about that, that's a much better way to go than suppression of disease. Because when you heal from the inside, you become well, not just without disease signs. Yeah, you get rid of disease. You don't just cover the disease up. So it's worth checking out other options. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful day. It's already the next day there, so it's already Monday for
Yeah.
you. So thank you so much and take care.
All right. Thank you very much for the interview and considering me.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.